So under Tools and Update, the thing ever loads. It will tell you that my current version is 18.02. My remote collector version is 18.02 as well. And if I click on this check for latest version, it will bring me actually to device42.update and will tell me, hey, there are newer versions available. We have 2 release cycles. We usually have between 6 and 8 weeks for a new main appliance release, and we will potentially every 2 or 3 weeks bring in a remote collector, a smaller update. The remote collector updates are usually specifically for new target systems. So whenever we put new SNMP things in for discovering more switches, whenever we do some changes in how we discover certain objects, this is usually floating into a remote collector update, which is more regular coming in than a main appliance update. However, both of these updates will have to be applied to the main appliance, and the main appliance will then send out the updates automatically to each and every remote collector, which is actually a handy feature because you don't have to do then on each remote collector any update. As soon as the remote collector once has been brought up and connected, usually you don't need to touch the remote collector anymore unless you maybe need to do some reboot or something like this. But generally, all you have to do is you click on this one, give your email address, you will receive a download link together with some instructions. You will receive a download file, and then what you will do is you will have to upload this download file to the Appliance Manager, which brings us straight away to the heart of Device42 backend. So if we go to Tools and then go to Appliance Manager, close a few windows, and log in. By the way, one of the links that is in the documentation guide is actually the default credentials that are set whenever you deploy Device42 in the first place. So you have all the default credentials that are part of the quick deployment guide. Some of these will force you to change the password after the first login. Definitely do that, especially if you have it in the wild, in the internet, in the public facing. So the Device42 is the appliance manager. That's a back end of Device42. A few of the features that you can do here is updating the software. So we were just talking about getting an update file and then updating the software. The procedure is quite straightforward. So we'll take whatever file I've downloaded, upload it here to the main appliance. Once that has happened, I will then go to my Device42 console, which is the console, the shell console on the VM itself. I will log in, and then I have the stage number 3, which says apply update. So the update will be uploaded, applied through the console, and then it will be automatically distributed to all the remote collectors, and the main appliance and the remote collectors will reboot after the new update. Part of the updates is usually not only new features or functions or bug fixes for Device42, but also OS fixes will be in there. So new version of certain packages, software parts or whatsoever will be distributed from us towards the main appliance. So the main appliance is a closed environment from the customer, from your point of view. It will be managed by us through the updates that you will receive with the Device42 update cycle. So you will never ever have root access to the relevant appliance. All you get is just this menu here where you can do a few features like restarting the application, configuring the networking, installing the VMware tools, etc. So you see the update is quite straightforward. Talking about the Appliance Manager features, backup and restore. There are 2 different ways of doing backups of Device42 in real-life productions. Number 1 will be you can or should do a normal backup cycle of the VM. After all, a Device42 main appliance is a normal VM, and therefore you can do the normal backup, either doing a shutdown and doing a proper cold backup of it with whatever backup solution you use, or you can do a snapshot and do a normal backup. Only caveat to this one, there is a Postgres database running in the backend. If it's writing certain transactions while you're doing a backup, there is a potential risk that there will be some sort of corruptions on the restored file if you're doing afterwards. So you maybe want to think about these kind of things as well. Maybe shutting it down, hibernating it or whatsoever before doing this the backup. What you then can do on top of it that you see here is actually a cold backup. So number 1 will be I set up a passphrase for the backup, which also is used for the encryption. And then I can do certain backup settings. So configure to run the backup regularly, with what kind of compression, and then where to store the backup. So per default, we can store offsite cold backups on an SFTP server, an NFS server. You can store it on Amazon S3. Then you configure the schedules, and you can also restore it. Part of the backup is actually that you can configure on the backup what level of backup will be done. Is it just a database? Is a database on configuration? So different levels are in there, but like metadata. The reason why we have done that is as well as if you ever need our support and there's any major problem with either discovery or something else within device 42, what you can do is you can basically take a full backup here, encrypt it with a password, send this whole backup to device 42 support, and we will be able to restore a full running device 42 main appliance from your environment with your database, with everything in there in our demo in our environment to then start troubleshooting and see what the data problem is. The same backup can also be used for a cold restore. So if you do this backup on a regular base and then you have a disaster where you need to recover the device 42 main appliance somewhere completely different, all you have to do, you spin up a new main appliance and you then restore the backup into the new main appliance, and that will then get you going from where you have left off if you have not done any other backup, any snapshot, vMotion or whatsoever. So you can use this one to really replay the whole device 42 main appliance as it is. Before we go back to the questions, a few other things. We just talked about software. You have the option to restart the application and Exargo from the backend. These are two complete separate web servers. So if the front-end web server for whatever reason is dying, you will be able to either reboot the whole VM or to go into the backend and just restart your particular application. You can create log bundles again for our support. This will create bundles for everything internally of device 42 to see if there's some problems or some inconsistencies, etc. You can clear the system logs, especially if you have a lot of discovery, a lot of data, a lot of stuff running there. It could be helpful to sometimes clear the logs. A good advice also for customer support, if you have a problem that you can replicate, go in, clear the logs first, then run the problem, collect all the logs that are there. The same also applies when you do remote collected discovery of a target system and want to capture some logs. Try to reduce the amount of noise in there that's not going to help anyone. So clear the logs, run the problem where you capture the logs, and then take these logs as they are and send to support so that reduce the whole load and amount of it. Can optimize the database, and you can also go in and create an SNMP and IPMI output. This is particularly helpful for us as well in terms of discovering new devices that may not be currently supported by device 42. We're talking about switches, new load balancers, new equipment that we don't have in our database, that we don't have in our lab, so we weren't able to produce that one. The underlying idea is it's a new device. We do a full SNMP walk. You can put in some data by yourself in the first place, and what you will then do, you will run a full SNMP walk against a particular device with all the OIDs that will get back with the responses. If you have a relevant MIP file that will help us to translate OIDs into some meaningful output data, you can attach this MIP file in here, and you can submit all of these things straight away for us, helping our support to very quickly build support for any new switches or any new network devices in here. So that will help to be more efficient. That's why we have loads of these remote collector updates in between. If you just want to do it by yourself, what you can do is you just want to do a simple SNMP walk for yourself to test, can actually my remote collector or my main appliance reach a particular target system through UDP 161 with the community string, and what kind of output do I get back, and then you can work yourself through the output if you want to. Very helpful for troubleshooting, for finding out what can you do. The same also applies for IPMI. If you want to test that your IPMI or your output is coming back as expected, usually for management consoles. And finally, the global settings, you can set your inactivity download time, TLS versions, you can upload your own HTTPS certificate, set up a proxy, change the appliance mode. So there are a few things that you can configure in here. The network usage, so if you want to understand how much usage is currently happening, change the host name, do more connectivity tests for SNMP, ping sweep, netcut, traceroute from the main appliance to whatever target system to find out, can I reach my machine or can I not reach my machine? And the Nginx configuration is in here as well.